Good Friday to everybody in Gov 603. Welcome again to week 2. Bam! And the video in which we talk about your answers to the questions from week 1. But first, much better. Let's see. This is my Craving Wilderness cup. I think I got this cup at the Denver Denver Museum of Natural History. And I think I was coming down out of the Indian Peaks Wilderness, maybe Rocky Mountain National Park, Indian Peaks. I think Indian Peaks. Beautiful region of the country. Massive granite spires, glacial lakes, snowpack. Very cold, but very beautiful. Okay, so in the second video, which is this one in the week, what we do is we take a look at your answers to the questions. We add a little bit, sort of flesh out, give you an idea of what it is that I'm looking for week by week. And bear in mind, I want you to watch these videos and remember what it is that I say about the various elements that make up the questions, because first of all, it's designed to help you develop a broad and growing understanding of research and the research process. And even if you don't go on to be an empirical researcher, okay, you at least will be equipped with the tools to understand researchers when they talk about their research. All right. So I'm going to, see what you have to say, answer the questions. I may add bits to that. And it's important that you take notes, up here or anywhere else about what it is that I might add. Okay, let's get right into it. Question number 1, define the following terms: recreational research, empirical research, applied research, etc. Now, week 1 and this question is all about just basic terminology and definition. So you develop this vocabulary that you're going to use throughout the course. Okay. Joshua, let's take you first because you went first. In fact, you crushed it this week. Good job. Empirical research. Empirical research is defined as a methodology that requires scholars to clearly state hypotheses or propositions that can be evaluated with actual objective observations. And then you have a political phenomenon, which is true, but it doesn't have to be a political phenomenon because, whether you're studying politics or not, the empirical research process is the same. Here's what I want you to do. Okay. This is your deep think for the weekend. I want you to start reorienting, to start rewiring how it is that your head works and how it is that you come to conclusions about things that you have to evaluate. Emotions are an important part of how we navigate the world. All right. In fact, they're usually our default. But there are a number of things by way of questions and puzzles to unravel in life for which emotions are not only not the right tool, it's a really bad idea. I mean, you can get it emotional as you want, but 2 + 2 is still, 4. Okay. I want you to get into the habit of thinking empirically. I mean, quite literally, construct a hypothesis. When you have okay, what should I do? Construct a hypothesis in your head. Remember, a hypothesis contains 3 elements: at least 2 variables, a prediction about a causal relationship between one variable and another, and a direction of that causal relationship. All right, and then start looking around for evidence to help test the hypothesis that you formulated in your head, through which you come to an objective meaning based on the evidence, not subjective based on what we want, what we feel, what we would prefer, what's good for us. Nope. An objective conclusion. All right. Try to develop that as a mode of thought. All right. Next, recreational research. All right. Back to you, Joshua. Recreational research is self-defined, meaning research that is spurred by intellectual curiosity, regardless of whether the research will lead to change in government policy or private behavior. Okay. Yes, and I want to focus that definition just a little bit. Recreational research, and again, this is not specific to political science. Recreational research is something that's done for personal sort of intellectual curiosity, but it's research that's not done with full empirical rigor. That is, the you know the study sample is not random. It's not very big. The questions aren't really deep and wide, and as such, you should not apply the conclusions from your recreational research to the broader population. And that's really the entire point of research. It's okay because we don't have to study the whole population to come up with an answer to a question. I mean, part of the reason that many people that you will meet do not understand this is that we're living in a particular age in which, I'm drawing on the pad here, in which people are loath to acknowledge how similar we are in our behavior to one another. We have this, I would even go so far as to say, obsession with individuality, and we're all different and we're all unique. Yeah, no, we're not. In terms of how we behave, that is, if you take, I don't care what the behavior is, what people eat, what kind of clothes they wear, how they vote, what kind of issues get them motivated or not. If you take any group, anything for a specific group of people, it doesn't matter here if they're in America or somewhere else, and you plot their response to that thing. So you have the Y and the X axis. So let's say this is the thing and this is the response. You're going to get a bell-shaped curve. And this is the middle, this is the mean, and in which between about here and here, something like 70 or 80% of the people are going to fall. Now that leaves 10% out on the tails, okay, of the people in terms of their reaction, in terms of their behavior. So I'm not saying that we're all the same, okay? I'm saying that in terms of behavior, where the majority of our behavior is the same. And people don't seem to like that, all right? So recreational research is research that you should not apply to the general populace, but empirical research is research that you can, and you don't need to research the entire populace. All right, you can take a representative sample in relationship to a whole populace, a fairly small percentage, and if your research is done right, you can apply those conclusions to the populace as a whole. Recreational research, no can do. All right, number 3, applied research. Applied research, back to you, Joshua. Applied research is empirical research that addresses a specific problem or directly applies to real-world situations. This type of research was found in the text with a 205 study from Kensworthy, analyzing the income distribution of growth market incomes against data from Luxembourg income studies to determine government response to change in the market income inequality. Okay, back to the core definition. Applied research, and I want to narrow that definition just a little bit too, Joshua. Applied research is research that's done specifically with an application. That is, what kind of policies are we going to implement? What kind of actions are we going to put in place? And this can be in medicine, this can be in politics. So what kind of medications or treatment regimes are we going to design for situation, whatever, like broken legs or heart attacks? Or what kind of political programs are we going to design for situation Y? Now, when we get a little further into the semester, I'm going to give you some, an awareness of some hard and fast rules concerning human behavior and distribution that might challenge your assumptions about how it is we best tackle some of the problems that we grapple with sort of year in and year out as a society, politically, as we politically grapple with. But that'll come later. Okay, good answer. On to question number 2. Using resources from the World Wide Web, identify the following graphs and use in chapter 1. Okay, scatter plot graph, bar graph, line graph. Okay, this question is designed, I'll give it to you, merely to familiarize you with these different types of graphs. So I'm not going to pick anybody out, all right? But you need to be familiar with what these graphs are and how they're best used, whether it's scatter plot, bar, or line. not only again, so you can understand researchers and their research, but there's a midterm and a final exam in this class, and I can pretty much guarantee that you'll see questions like this again. Wink. Okay. Hope I didn't give something away by doing that. Okay, question 3. What are the main elements of the empirical research process? Okay, now by now, as we sort of have one thing that builds on another, you should be getting a pretty good idea of this. But let's go to the answers. Camillus, and by the way, if I mispronounce your name, send me an email. I promise I'll get it right. Okay, so the empirical research process. Here you point out these are the essential elements: development of an idea to investigate or a problem to solve. And you should be doing that. You should be doing that for your research proposal projects. Okay. This stage encompasses identifying an academic subject or problem, often inspired by academic writings, personal experience, present gaps, or inconsistencies in research outcomes. Excellent. I'll give you one example. I did a PhD at Regent. It was my second PhD. And I noticed, this was back in 2013, there was a whole lot of writing and stuff being published that just extolled the wonders of social media. Oh, use this social media app and you will feel more friended. You will feel more in touch. You will have more time. You'll have all of these resources to solve your problems. And I thought, okay. I mean, I have been working around the world in a variety of places, and I've seen social media used in some pretty interesting and out of the way spots. But I wasn't seeing it, it wasn't looking at the people who were using it. I didn't see that they saw it as like the major problem solver. But that's what the publications were saying, and especially for distressed peoples in the world. I thought, okay, let's ask them, the distressed peoples of the world. So it happened to be that I was working in Iraq during the war with the Islamic State. Then I asked the refugees who were running for their lives from the Islamic State about their use of social media, and did they see it as a tool that solved their problems? All right. Now, I don't want to, spoiler. I don't want to give away the story. You can see my research if you go to the Regent Library and just type in Jeff Gardner dissertation, and it'll pop up. Okay. Next, hypothesis creation. Once research subject is discerned or determined, maybe, the next step involves crafting accurate hypotheses. Given that they are corroborated, these initial statements explain the connection among issues or the presence of particular circumstances. Okay. And Camillus, by the way, I can tell that you've taken this, from texts and online sources, which is fine, so long as, and I'm not, I'm not singling you out, but for anybody, so long as you understand what all of this stuff means. Okay. So after you say, okay, this is a problem, this is an issue to investigate, then you create your hypothesis. Let me encourage you to do it in exactly that order, because if you start with a hypothesis, remember, with the 3 elements, more than 2, one or at least 2 variables, a causal prediction of the relationship of one variable to another, and a direction. If you start with a good hypothesis, this will help you shape your research. You will know from a good hypothesis, by the way, what kind of literature you have to start looking at to construct a literature review. You will know what sort of methodology you need to have to answer the hypothesis. So in last video, I gave the example of, say, what if I wanted to test the relationship, the causal relationship between me not wiping my boots when I come in from hiking on the muddy trails and my wife's mood by the end of the weekend. Okay. How, the hypothesis that I constructed, what would be the best methodology? Would the best methodology be for me to sit down and do a face-to-face interview with my wife and say, so tell me, how do you feel about my muddy boots on the carpet? Yeah, go on. Maybe not, because I would probably be biasing her response. I mean, probably just annoy her to start with, and that would irritate her, and that would bias the outcome. Okay, so having a good hypothesis will shape your literature review, shape your methodology, and then finally, it will tell you what kind of evidence you must have to test the relationship between the variables. So back to that example that I gave you about muddy boots and cranky wives. I'd have to count the number of times I did or did not wipe my boots. I'd have to have some kind of survey instrument that would test mood in someone. I would have to construct a process in which I could compare the two to the other in a way that showed that this one caused this one. So if you get a solid hypothesis, much of what you need to do next in the research study is laid out and explained for you. Okay, and then finally, third process, interpretation and judgment after data acquisition. It is up to the researcher to decide whether the gathered evidence aligns with a hypothesis. Okay, yeah, and I want to focus on that too. Not aligns with a hypothesis. Using the gathered data, is the hypothesis is it, in the term we use in research, is it supported or is it not? Now remember this, as a researcher, your job is not to prove that the hypothesis is true. Your job is not to prove that no boot wiping leads to cranky wife. That's not your job. Your job is just to test the question. So if no boot wiping leads to cranky wife, then the hypothesis is supported. If no boot wiping has no relationship to cranky wife, then the hypothesis is not supported. That's it. That's all you have to do as a researcher. You're really not out to prove anything. Okay? All right. Question number 4. What are the assumptions of the empirical research process of these assumptions, in which, in your opinion, is most likely to invalidate the results of a research project? Okay, this is an extremely important question because the point of research is to be able to come up with conclusions that can be applied to the broader populace. And if you do something wrong and what you come up with can't be applied, then you did it wrong. Okay, Felix, let's take a look at your answer. Empirical research processes are dependable and variable due to many fundamental assumptions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So, the takeaway from this for this question is I want you to be able, if you're asked, winky, okay, I'm not making that too obvious, am I? If you're asked, which of the following are part of the assumptions of the empirical research process, you'll be able to go, oh, yeah, okay, I recognize that. Okay, that's the point of this question. Okay. One reasonable assumption that may raise doubts regarding the reliability of investigation conclusions is that the sample will precisely represent the entire population. Consequently, the external validity of the examination may be compromised by researchers if the model utilized in the assessment fails to describe the characteristics of the larger population under scrutiny effectively. Okay, and again, Felix, I can tell you're pulling this from some source. Let me start encouraging you folks. I want to hear this stuff in your own words. Okay. And I want you to be able to explain it to me. All right. If I asked you, well, what does that mean? I want you to be able to say, well, it means blah, blah, blah. Okay. But anyway, yes, this is perhaps the greatest shortcoming of empirical research is that it was not done in such a way that the results can be applied to the populace at large. And therefore, although there was research and there are results, but those results are junk. They're crap. All right. Second big thing for the weekend, get it into our heads that just because something is written down or researched and calculated out doesn't mean that it's true or that it was done correctly. I mean, you could fill an entire chalkboard with solving a mathematical equation, but if the answer at the end is wrong, the work in between question and answer means nothing. except for it just takes up a lot of space on the board. All right. Be on your guard when you look at research. Look carefully at what kind of evidence they pull in. Look how many people they ask. Look at their conclusions weighed against the evidence. Are they overstating their conclusions? If they ask, 100 people and they say, then everybody in the country thinks this way, you should go, yeah, that's 100 people. And where do these people live? What was their political affiliation? Did they ask 90 Republicans and 10 Democrats? Okay, or vice versa. Look at how they construct their study before you take them at their word for the results. Okay. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Continue with your good work during week 2. That means selecting your research topic, okay, and doing the readings and working on the discussion questions. And come next week, we'll have another couple of videos. And in the meantime, I think about you. I pray about you. And I will see you on Canvas. God bless.